Good morning, everybody. This is Recovery Dude. I apologize, I haven't posted a whole lot this week. I believe my last post was Monday. And the reason for that is I didn't feel like I had a lot to offer you guys this week. And the reason for that was I actually went off explosively earlier in the week. My day had caught up with me and things just kept happening and I let it build up. I couldn't release the pressure fast enough to deal with the day positively. And I ended up blowing my top. And one character defect of mine that, I would say is a character defect, but has also helped me. I have a very explosive personality. Now, what that means is when I get angry, I tend to be extremely forceful with people. Now, it is kind of unfortunate in this society when you want to get certain things done, if you're not forceful, nothing ever gets done, or at least it won't work out in your favor. An example of that is working with like utility companies or paying bills, things like that. If you don't fight for your side, you're going to end up paying more. And I do that all the time. And, it's that saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Well, sometimes I feel like I have to be the squeaky wheel. And the squeakier the wheel, the faster it's going to get oiled. So when I'm going to be the squeaky wheel, I get extremely loud. Now, has that benefited me in the past? Absolutely. It benefits me all the time. But it's also a character defect that is extremely bad for my sobriety. And the example is this week when I said I felt like I didn't have anything to give to you guys. I didn't. Because when I exploded earlier this week, I lost all of my peace and serenity. I really felt like it was ripped from me. And I had to get it back. Before I had anything to share with you guys, I had to find a way to get that peace and serenity back. And I will tell you, peace and serenity are very hard to come by, but they're very easy to give away or to be taken from you. So over the last couple of days, I upped my meetings and just practiced what I learned in the program and just tried to get that sense of peace back. I would say this morning, here it is Friday morning, I would say I have some of that peace and serenity back, at least enough to say that my head's in the right space. But I'm not back to the level I was prior to that. So a fair warning, if you're anything like me and you do the same thing, you use aggression sometimes to work in your favor. It may help with that situation, but I have to use the serenity prayer in that situation. If I'm getting ready to blow my top, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and really the wisdom to know the difference. Is this explosive anger going to change the situation? Is it going to change it for a positive, or is it going to make it a whole lot worse? Well, in my particular example earlier this week, I actually went off explosively multiple times in that day. Well, the first time I did it, it worked in my favor. The second time I did it, it very much did not. And it led to me having to work a 10th step. When I was wrong, promptly admitted it. And I had to do that. I had to promptly admit that I was wrong. And the problem with that is when I get that angry, I don't want to apologize to anybody. It's self-righteous anger. And because I was so absorbed in that self-righteous anger, I had to cool myself off before I saw that I was in the wrong. And a lot of times when I use self-righteous anger, almost every single time, I'm going to have to work a step 10. I'm going to have to realize that I was wrong and promptly admit it. And say some apologies, because I don't want to add that to another step 4. Because that's the thing, when I'm wrong and I promptly admit it, it doesn't have to go back to being added to a step 4. And I try to minimize that. We all know the step 4 is not the easiest of steps to work. Why do I want to add more stuff to that? And the great thing about this program, or most of the recovery programs, is when we're wrong, we promptly admit it. And when you do that, you can get rid of it or solve that problem a little more quickly, and it doesn't have to be rolled back into other steps. And so I try to work a step 10 every day. And I think about my day and say, all right, where did I screw up? What did I do wrong? I'm human. I know I screwed up throughout the day. Now, what did I screw up and how do I fix it? So, it is very unfortunate. And I think about it, why do I have that explosive anger? And for me, I can feel it. I have a ball of anger that sits right below my rib cage, literally right there. And I can feel it there. And it's always there. I can suppress it to the point where I don't feel it as much, but I know it's there. And when I need it, I can bring it on very, very quickly. But I have to be so, so careful with that. Because anger is something for a normal person. They can use anger and get away with it. It's not going to be detrimental to their health or their life. For an alcoholic or addict, using anger in that way, I can tell you from experience, big warning sign. Because am I in a place where I can recover from using that anger explosively? Because I know it's going to affect me. And is it going to affect me to the point where I'm going to get a big case of the F-its because of it and have a drink? And I can see that being a very likely scenario where immediately after that, so worked up with anger being that very, very strong emotion, that case of the F-its comes up right away. And now I'm like, oh man, okay, that drink sounds really good. I need to calm down. And I've always had that, as long as I can think back. I mean, even when I played football back in high school, I used that explosive anger to do fairly well playing football. And when I needed it, I pulled it out and was extremely aggressive. So in some sense, that part of anger is part of our early brain. The same place where the alcoholism comes from, or the addiction. It's that fight or flight response. So it's part of us. And I know some people are a little more timid than others. They don't have that extreme anger. I'm not timid. I'm not one of those. So for me, I feel like it was placed there for a reason. Now, is it a primitive reason? Probably. But it's always been part of me. So, and that's why I call it a character defect. Is it helping me or hurting me more? It can help me, but ultimately in the long run, it's going to hurt me. So it's something that has to fall on my list of character defects, and I have to be aware of it so that I can work on it a little bit more over time. Now, do I expect it to go entirely away? No. Do I necessarily want it to go entirely away? Absolutely not. But I have to be very careful with it. I have to be aware of it, and I have to ask God, again with the serenity prayer, if I use this, is it going to help me in a positive way? Sometimes that can be very hard to know. The thing is, if I do it, which is far and few between, if I get that explosive anger and I use it, I really have to evaluate what just happened and how can I fix it, because I know that it has affected me by doing it. So I wanted to share that thought with all of you, that thought of explosive anger, not quite to the point of rage. I know rage is one of the 7 deadly sins. But it wasn't rage, but I will say it was bordering on that line. So if any of you get really angry like I do, there's some food for thought on that. And hopefully you all have a fantastic Friday. And it's good talking to you as always. Love you all. Have a great weekend.